The FDA treats bird contamination as what's called adulteration. And that's really where they're looking at it, and they're asking the question, not just is product exposed, but is there a reasonable chance that product will be exposed? And if so, then that product is legally unfit for sale. It's kind of unbelievable, the scale of some of these infestations and how big they get. Are you kidding me right now? Like, this is disgusting. Like, do you see what's happening? Hey, welcome back, Bird Control Secrets. I always say welcome back. Like, maybe I need a new tagline or a welcome, but I'm so excited to do these, man, because I kind of feel like I'm looking out for you guys, like as I do it. I'm in this because it's like I get the opportunity to protect you and your family, protect me and my family. I've talked about this before. I've got 3 kids, man, and human health and safety. It's like human is the first word in that statement, right? It's like we want to protect humans, and oftentimes when we're dealing with birds, it's a little bit like shouting into the void, right? It's a little bit like standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon saying, hey, and it's like there are a million other issues or whatever. A lot of pests get a lot more attention, et cetera. A lot of issues get a lot more attention. And this is part of the reason why it's sneaky and it's subtle, but it causes so much damage because people are sort of focused on these other things that the damage doesn't accumulate quite as quickly until it does. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like this is a big deal, right? And so I saw that to say, like, I'm just passionate about helping you guys. And so I get excited about these episodes as they come up. So today I'm going to take a little bit of time and talk through some things that get a little bit ignored, and it's food warehouses, distribution centers, particularly loading docks. Now, you guys might be thinking, like, wait a minute, no, like all of F&B has some kind of protection. And here's the thing, it's not just whether or not there's an operator in place, and there's not just whether or not there's a plan to take care of pests in place. The question is, how effective is the plan that's there? Because I'm telling you, man, if let me help you if you're on the facility side, because I know a lot of times you don't have time to be an expert because you're dealing with a little bit of everything. The dock door's not working, the furnace isn't working, this rodent issue's happening. You don't have time to be an expert. I totally get that. That's great. That's one of the things that our team tries to do, is be an easy button for you guys if you're on the facility side. And if you're on the pest side, you're dealing with a whole bunch of different pests or whatever, so being a specialist is difficult as well. Here's something I want to make really clear. Is that if the plan that is being put together is, the reason for the plan is so that you pass an audit, and the effectiveness of the plan is not like the biggest weighted factor, I'm telling you, man, people are at risk when you do it that way. Here's the other thing. Now, on the facility side, I want you guys to understand this, that if you are talking to someone and the plan includes where it's like, hey, birds are hanging out over here, and causing an issue over here, and someone comes in, or it could be multiple areas, these 10 areas or whatever it is. Here is the plan to keep the birds from causing an issue over here. You have to ask yourself this question. I'm telling you, if you're considering this in the plan, ask yourself this question. Great. We're going to take care of this issue over here. Where are the birds going after they leave right here? Are they leaving my site? Or are they moving somewhere else on the facility, causing a problem somewhere else? Because that's another contamination risk. And I watch guys do this all the time. These are really bad plans. When the plan gets put together and then they end up chasing birds all over the place or whatever, right? From a pest control operator standpoint, man, you guys end up being frustrated if you're on the pest side, because it's like, man, I keep trying solutions and they're not working. Or maybe it's like they took care of the issue here, but now I got to go back and do something over here, and now I got to do something over here. It's because it's the wrong plan to start with, right? And so understand that. So pest guy, once you asking yourself the question, where are the birds going after I do this? And then facilities guy, I want you asking the same question, where are the birds going after this plan is done, right? And if the answer is if it shuffles them, it's the wrong plan. You're going to spend a whole bunch of money. You're going to keep chasing them around, and you're never going to solve the problem. Okay? So it's really, really important to kind of keep that in mind as you're assessing these plans. Now, birds start to draw a lot of attention kind of this time of year because of nesting, and because of the numbers of birds that are there, and they're staying in closer proximity to the site because they've got nests there. It's safe. Remember, birds are always looking for food, water, and safe places to hang out, right? Let me give you guys some realities and some real numbers here really quickly. First of all, the FDA treats bird contamination as what's called adulteration. And that's really where they're looking at it, and they're asking the question, not just is product exposed, but is there a reasonable chance that product will be exposed? And if so, then that product is legally unfit for sale. Here's an interesting number that's a little bit crazy. Food recalls regularly exceed $10 million. $10 million when you factor in product loss, logistics, and brand damage. I mean, think about that for a minute. I can't remember what the average house price is in the U.S. I think it's like somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. That's like between 20 and 30 houses. $10 million. Like, put that number in perspective. Like, don't just, we hear a number and we'll be like, oh yeah, like blah, blah, blah. But put that number in perspective for a minute. Think about it like, I can't remember what the average American is going to own, like 5 to 8 cars or something like that in their lifetime or something like that. And think about the average price of a car. If you're just buying kind of basic cars, I mean, you're talking, I don't know, $35,000 to maybe $50,000 or whatever, somewhere in there. Think about how many cars that you're going to own and what $10 million is. Now, I'm not just talking about $10 million in terms of like how much we spend on recalls across all companies. I'm talking about $10 million per recall. Now, think about how many recalls we have from a food standpoint every year. And here's what's interesting about it. Literally every one of them are avoidable. Think about that. Chew on that for a minute. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, totally avoidable. I mean, it's one thing to like make an investment in infrastructure or something or whatever, right? And you had to do that and build roads or whatever, and it's $1 billion. But it's a whole other thing entirely to be like, I spent $1 billion on stuff that I totally could have avoided. It's like, oh, like, can we make some better decisions here, right? Well, shuffling birds around causes that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying that every single one of these recalls are caused by birds, but I'm telling you, if you've got adulteration, contamination there at the site, and that's happening from pest facilities, if you're on the facility side and pest guy, you don't want to be the weak link in the chain, man. You don't want to be the one that's, part of that $10 million loss cause that's there. There are FDA warning letters that have cited facilities for bird droppings over stored food and active birds inside warehouses, forcing corrective plans and repeat inspections before they could continue even normal operations. So I've seen plants shut down where it's like $1 million or $2 million or $3 million a day while the plant is shut down till it's corrected. I'm telling you, you don't want to be the guy that has that happen. Now, I started thinking about this as just a regular guy or whatever, because there is such a thing as like kind of before pest and after pest a little bit here, or before facilities and after facilities. Seldom are many of us like, third generation or something like that. Most of us kind of stumbled into this a little bit. And so that's exactly how I was. I mean, I was born in Southern California. I live in Tulsa now. Which is great, kind of land of freedom, which is great here. So it's interesting. I had all of these viewpoints about these types of things that until I kind of got into it, I didn't really understand. And so here's one of the things that I kind of assumed, I think, like as a dad, for instance, right, with kids, just assumed that like this stuff would get caught, in whatever the testing phases are, this contamination and all that kind of stuff would get caught before it makes it down line. But that's not always true, depending on the way that the contamination is set up. Not everything becomes a recall. And some of it gets caught and some of it doesn't get caught. And that is like freaking frightening, right? Now, listen, I say this on other episodes too. I'm like, I'm not going to freak out and stop eating food or whatever, right? Or start buying, things to measure food or do all that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying that, like, man, we have such an enormous responsibility in what we do to make sure that we get this right, to make sure that the plan is right, okay? Now, if I'm someone who's looking at it from bottom line, I'm thinking liability here. What are the chances of liability? And that's always what we're assessing. If we're in a position where we have to think about that kind of thing, think about a grocery store where there's a spill on the floor, right? You're thinking, what if someone slips, right? First question is, man, what if somebody gets hurt? But next question is, what if someone gets hurt and I get sued or whatever, right? So think about the massive amount of liability there are. There are court cases where guys have been indicted and sent to prison, right? I'm not talking about guys, CEOs. I'm talking about guys that are over facilities that have been indicted and sent to prison for not taking care of issues like these. So that's something to be thinking about, right? So if we know that something like this is happening and we don't act, that's really where problems start. And if we know something like this is happening and we act slowly or we act with the wrong action, I'm telling you, there's a huge amount of liability there, okay? And then also now, as someone who's been on site, walked around a million of these things, seen a bunch of these infestations, it's kind of unbelievable the scale of some of these infestations and how big they get and how disgusting it is. You kind of have to like acclimate yourself to it a little bit because infestations start small and they kind of grow with time. And so there'll be workers that'll be in these conditions and it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like this is disgusting. Like, do you see what's happening? And they're just living with it because they've kind of acclimated to it and they're just not aware of the danger, right? Okay, well, I'm not advocating that all of the workers need to be aware of the danger. That's kind of a pipe dream. I am advocating, though, that, like, man, those of us who are responsible for it are aware of the danger and do something about it to protect the people that aren't aware of the danger. I've been in some facilities where there are guys and they're sitting and they're working at their desk and there's birds that are loafing in the beams or whatever in some facilities, and it's like droppings are falling down right on the edge of the desk, and they're just working and setting their sandwich down, and I'm not saying they're setting it in the droppings or something, but I'm just saying it's like, I wish I didn't see that, right? That's gross. Okay, so normalization can become a real problem. And I'm just trying to bring perspective that this is a super significant issue. And just because you see it all the time, don't normalize it. Like, it should be one of those things where it's like, the more you see it, it's like, oh man, we got to do something about this. Okay. Now, here's what's happening. Birds aren't random and they follow patterns. Birds are going to return to consistent food sources. So this is why I'm kind of narrowing in on some of these food processing facilities where food's available multiple times a day. Birds are going to feed 3 to 5 times daily, sometimes a little bit more than that. And so one of the entry points here that have to be protected are these loading docks because they create that pattern really perfectly. Now, something that I have observed is that sparrows, for instance, absolutely love pallets. I'll see hundreds, maybe even thousands of them all over pallets, nesting on the inside. And a single pair, a male and a female, can produce 3 or 4 broods a year and more. In fact, I've seen this happen, and this is proven scientifically, that one male and one female can produce like 2,000 sparrows in like 2 or 3 years or something crazy, right? And so these problems start small and they get bigger with time. They love hanging out near these pallets, and the pallets are usually in the back or on the sides where you've got these bay doors. So what ends up happening now is You've got trucks that are backing in. Birds have timed it perfectly. Maybe they're loafing right up on top of the cushion just above those bay doors, and they're waiting for that roll-up door to happen. They're going to fly right in there. Guys will put the flaps in and all that kind of stuff. They're just waiting for somebody to open those. They're going to fly right in, right? So they're flying in through the dock doors, but that's not the main problem, though. The main problem is what's happening on the outside. See, one of the things that we tell people all the time is that interior infestations are just spillover from larger exterior infestations. So when we have conversations with people, particularly when we start to talk about some of these small birds, sparrows, starlings, we'll ask right off the bat when they say, hey, I've got 20 or 50 birds or something inside my facility, we'll go, what's a tree line like outside? And it's like, sure enough, there are trees in the parking lot, or they're surrounded by trees. Maybe it's kind of open country or an industrial area that's out a little ways from town, and there's trees all around the outside or whatever. And so birds are just hanging out in those trees and then flying over the facility, and it's really, really easy. And so it means when you've got an interior infestation that you've got a lot more on the outside. So you're not seeing the problem, you're actually seeing the overflow of the problem. By the time the birds start getting inside, it's already a big problem. You're already kind of being reactive, right? Okay, so now here's something that a lot of facilities are doing, and we've seen this. Maybe it's a facility and you've got spikes installed, or maybe you've got net, maybe you've got deterrents, or maybe you've got sound or magnetic stuff or whatever, right? You've got that installed or whatever, right? But think about this. Do you still see birds? Think about that for a minute. Do you still see birds? Man, I think I'm beating a dead horse a little bit here or whatever, right? But don't just all right, we did something or whatever. It's like, do I still see birds? If I still see birds around, there is a problem. Now, maybe they're not getting into the facility because I've temporarily done something, or maybe they're not loafing right up above this area because I've done something, but eventually it's going to be a problem again. And I'm telling you, it is a problem right now because of what's floating around in the air. I'll talk about that here in a minute. But if you block a ledge, birds are going to move to the next ledge. You net an area, they're going to move to the dock. You spike the dock, they move to the pallets or the roof line or the HVAC, right? All that's happening is redistribution of birds. And this is the reason why, think about this. And I challenge you, if you're on the facility side or if you're on the pest side, you do this too. But facility side, go look at how much you spent on the bird stuff and when you started spending it, right? It's like, oh yeah, I started this program 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And it started with 3/4 inch net install over here. And we spent $100,000 for that install over here. Okay, great. When did you spend next? Well, 6 months later, we spent to put net over here or put spike over here, and we spent $50,000. Okay, then when did you spend next? Well, a year later, then and I guarantee you will find these breadcrumbs like this, whatever, right? And it's always pretty high ticket, right? You're always having to get approval from somebody else. You're always having to blah, 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 because it goes over whatever you can, get normal approval for or something, right? That's a pattern, guys. So it's time for us to stop being reactive and be proactive, right? This is where regular programs, similar to, just like you wouldn't do with rodents, you wouldn't do a rodent program. Sorry. Yeah, I would stay there. You wouldn't do a rodent program, put some stations out once or whatever, right? And call that good. You would go check those stations. You would make sure they were in the right spots. You would monitor them. You'd see if they needed to go somewhere else. Blah, blah, blah. It had to be ongoing. And here's the great part. That cost a heck of a lot less than being reactive, right? And having to do some big clean out and blah, blah, blah. But so many people are just doing this reactive thing. And I'm just telling you, that is not the best way, A, to protect human health and safety, and B, to protect your bottom line. I said if you're on the pest side, do this. Ask yourself honestly. Look at the customer and think about look at the customer with the straight face or whatever here. But it's look at it and go how many times have I had to go back to that customer and charge them more money to go install something else somewhere else? Why did that happen? Because the bird shuffled. That's it. Nothing else. They just moved from one spot to the other. If I'm doing an install, that's no one else's fault but mine. I actually caused that problem. And that's that's a tough pill to swallow. I totally get it. And I know I'm taking a little bit of a hard line on this or whatever, right? But it's like, man, I'm thinking about like one of our locations had this deal happen, like, somewhat recently, where we had a refrigeration unit go down or whatever. This is our actual factory. Had a refrigeration unit go down, right? And unit was a little bit older. And so it's like we had a couple of companies come out and they were fixing stuff and doing all that or whatever. And they would fix something. And then like a couple days later, or like a week later, or 2 weeks later, or a month later, something would break. Fuse would go out, some blah, blah, blah. And it's like we'd call them back out. And it's like they kept charging us thousands of dollars every single time they would come to fix it, until eventually they were like, oh man, the whole thing has to be replaced or whatever, right? Well, it's like now it's tens and tens of thousands of dollars to go ahead and do that. So we kind of got fed up with it, and there was a company that was like, that cost more, but they were absolute experts, top of their game in doing it. And we set it up. They came out, took a look at it, and you know what they did? They traced everything back, and they were like, this was wrong, and 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 this is what caused all those issues. And it's like, here's what's nuts. This is nuts. In order to fix it, I think the price was like $3,000 after they got done. Hold on. I'm spending like thousands and thousands of dollars, and then I get proposed to spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars for a $3,000 problem. And there's just some maintenance to keep that from happening again. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now? You would be pissed if that was you in your house and someone was doing that to you at your house. Man, I'm just telling you, we have a responsibility here. And we've got to be reputable when we do this. It brings shame on like the whole industry when we go around and we're chasing stuff on shuffling. And I know I'm on a soapbox here, but I'm just telling you, man, it's like, let's actually solve the problem. Like, let's not have our hand in people's pocket. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I could keep going, and I probably have already crushed some toes right now, but I could probably like chop off some feet almost with some really dangerous stuff here, right? So I'm going to move on to the next thing. But FDA inspections don't care if birds move from one area to another. They're looking for contamination risk, and that's it. So the last thing I'll kind of close inside of this is there are facilities that have been cited. I'm not going to name specific facilities, but they've been cited after installing deterrents because of bird activity, because birds were still present on site somewhere else, meaning that the problem wasn't eliminated, it was just relocated. And what sucks about that is, okay, the company that did it, maybe they get fired or whatever. But the real world downline is that the guy who actually hired him, he's on the hook. And then maybe the person that's running the plant might be on the hook. And then now human health and safety is at jeopardy because, this is just a plan that wasn't that wasn't done right. So shuffling birds ends up spreading contamination across more surfaces. It spreads across walkways, equipment, storage areas, and it expands that contamination zone over time. And you end up with multiple zones all over the place. Okay. Here's another thing to think about. It's not about what you see. It's about what you breathe. This is interesting. CDC warns that distributing bird droppings can release airborne spores linked with respiratory illnesses like histoplasmosis. You guys know already, and we've got this on our website. You guys can comment or something. We'll send you a link. Birds carry and transmit over 60 different types of diseases. I'm telling you, when I go to a facility and I'm walking around, if it's in an area that I know is low airflow, man, I'm putting a mask on immediately, the right type of mask. So I'll be walking around on the inside of a facility with a mask on if I know that there's low airflow, because I know what I'm potentially breathing in. And here's the sad part. I'll be walking around. There might be hundreds or maybe 1,000 employees or something in a facility. They are all walking around breathing that stuff because I'm putting a mask on, so I know what's floating in the air isn't just dust. Okay. Now if I'm going to treat this, right, here's one of the things I'm thinking about. I've got to be thinking about where are the birds coming from, where are they going to, where's the food source, where's the water source, right? And so what I want to do actually is pivot really quickly. I've got a site pulled up on my computer. I'm going to walk through here really quickly how I would set some trays and do some treatment, how to think about sites like these, and what to look for. Okay, so I've got a plant pulled up, and I'm not going to... names have been changed to protect the innocent here. I don't want to put anybody on blast. Of course, we try to protect the privacy of people that we work with, but also people that we don't currently work with, and hopefully we do at some point. But I've got a plant pulled up here right now, and it's a pretty large plant, and I'm going to actually point out a couple of things. Remember I said I'm asking where are the birds coming from and where are they going to? So one of the things that you can see, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. You can see that there's train tracks running right along the north side. This is oriented north, south, east to west right now. And these are set up strategically to allow trains to go through a facility. So you can see there's this Y junction, right, and then that kind of comes over. And you can see that this runs right up by the facility here. And we've got tracks that run under this. Now, what ends up happening oftentimes is these trains will belly dump or deposit loads or something like that, and oftentimes that's going to be food, grain, just something like that or whatever in there, and then that gets processed on the inside of the facility. And so what ends up happening oftentimes is now you've got spillage. Now also spillage from these. Now also what will end up happening, you can see there's a main roadway right out over here to the east. And so, or actually, sorry, to the west. I think that's probably the better access point, more likely than not. And you'll have trucks that might pull into some of the main roadway in here or whatever, and now they might belly dump a load as well, or offload something else or whatever to the rear of the pallet. So those are two spots where I'm at. Again, I'm just asking where are the birds coming from and where are they going to, okay? And so as I look at something like this, I can easily see, okay, look, I've got an area where potential grain stuff, it's my inbound areas. It's like, okay, to the north, it looks like that is potentially an area where the birds are coming from or they're being attracted. And now here's the other thing, if I've got small birds, I talked about tree line earlier, but notice up here to the north, notice we've got all this tree line out over here. And so if I've got birds coming to this facility, they're flying in from this tree line up from the north. Looks like hold on, let's see here. I know if I look around well enough, I'll find some water source stuff or whatever in here as well. Small birds don't need big water sources, and oftentimes you've got like HVAC drip and stuff like that too. Okay. So one entry point there, we've got our trains. Now here's another one coming off of this road over here to the west. Trucks are coming in. They're checking in here with the booth there with the guard shack or whatever, with admin staff or security staff, and then they're pulling in, and you can see now I've got quite a few docks here covered over the top with awnings. This is very, very common. And then let's see if I go to an angle here, you can also see if I zoom in, you can also see this padded covering area here. That's a great loafing spot for birds, great spot for birds to hang out. Okay, so now we've identified a couple of access points. Again, I'm just asking where are the birds coming from, where are they going to? It's like, okay, we can see they're coming from tree line on one side. Look to the south, southwest, we've got more tree line over here. They're coming from a couple of different spots, right? Flying into a plant like this, and they're getting into the plant, let's say through these bay doors. Now, this is a pretty large facility, right? And I'm actually going to switch to 3D mode here so you guys can actually see a little bit more of what we're talking about here. So we've got our admin offices over there to the west. Here's our loading docks and the angle there. Big, large, wide rooftops going on here. We've got a couple of other access points. Maybe there's some other doors that the birds could actually get in through. And look at this, we've got another loading dock back in over here too, right? So again, I'm just looking for all my access points, kind of going through the facility, looking around, just trying to see, what all's happening here. Looks like I've got another potential access point happening right there, right? I'm just looking at, and that's one of the questions that I like to ask, or that our team likes to ask, is, where are the birds getting in from? Where are you seeing them most, or whatever? 99% of the time, it's going to be those loading dock areas, but there could be other areas that they're getting in, depending on how secure the actual facility itself is, right? Now, here was something that was interesting, and it was funny when and this is interesting because we digitally scout a lot of locations here. Check this out. What do you see right there? Birds. We can actually see it a lot as we're looking at this from the map standpoint. It's really interesting. Anyway, that's side maybe slightly nerdy little side trail there. But it's like we actually happen to know that there are birds at this facility. Sorry, we're not divulging the name. So if you were looking to get a lead out of this video, you can ask us. We'll help you figure out some stuff, but we won't divulge a name. Like I said, names have been changed to protect the innocent here. Okay, but now let's talk about how we're going to treat a facility like this. My goal is not to just keep things from this loading dock area. My goal is to get the birds to leave this facility altogether. And so oftentimes we will look at these a bit like a triangle or a bit like a rectangle. Now, we've talked about this before, but the way you're going to set it up is about 10 birds a tray. So let's actually just assume that this is a good size infestation. Maybe we've got, let's call it 50 birds on the interior of the facility. And so we're going to assume now that we've got, let's say, 200 birds on the exterior of the facility. That means I need 20 trays. How am I going to set this up? Now, a lot of guys immediately are going to think, I got to figure out how to put trays on the inside of the facility. And that's not how we want to do it. Unless we've got birds that are just totally trapped on the inside of the facility. Remember, with Avid Charlie, typically get about a quarter mile of rappelling. So that allows me to treat the exterior of the facility and take care of the interior problem too. So I'm going to actually work this from the exterior and then work inward if I have to, right? So I'm looking at this a bit like a triangle. Looking at the shape of this building. You could look at it like a rectangle if this was like a bigger site, but I'm going to look at this a bit like a triangle. I'm asking where the bird's getting in, right? Well, we identified a couple of spots that are heavy issues. We've got this spot to the north, and it looks like we've got this spot to the south, and those are my two areas. I'm going to concentrate most of my trays kind of in those areas. I'm going to switch to 3D mode here. I'm going to zoom in, and let's take a look at one of these areas over here. You can see I've got roof access, lots of HVAC stuff. This is a perfect baiting scenario. This is so easy. I'm going to put trays either right on top of this roof or right over in here. These birds are loafing up here on these ledges, and then they're kind of flying down. And so I actually want to put it close to this food access area here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some trays right over in that area. I'm going to put maybe 8 trays like right in there, cluster them. Now let's say I've got 12 trays left to work with out of my 20. I'm going to go back over here to my dock area. And I'm going to concentrate trays in my dock area, kind of spread these out. So I'm going to go, 8 trays right along here, maybe like 2 here, 2 right in here, 2 kind of right in here, and then 2 more right in here, right? So now I said, I think I said 8 and then 8, so I've got 16. So now I've got 4 trays left, okay? And this is a little bit of a lopsided triangle. But what I'll probably do is break those out. I might do 4 out over here, or I might consider 4 more trays out over here. Now, one of the things that you can also do is scouting trays. And so you can actually, if I know I need, let's say 20 trays for 200 birds, I might add 4 more trays just as scouting trays, right? But then from there, I'm actually just going to go ahead and pre-bait, and it's 3 easy steps. I pre-bait, live bait, and I monitor. That's really this entire process. The pre-baiting is going to be, I'm going to plan on 4 weeks, 2 trips a week or whatever. Now, if this plant is pretty far from the nearest service center, usually we like to gauge that as, excuse me, we like to gauge that as maybe 30 to 45 minutes from the nearest service center. Then we might cut it down to 1 pre-bait trip a week, which means it's 4 trips per week. Ends up saving a little bit of cost for the customer on the other side, unless they want those added the added trips happening. every week. And then from there, I'm doing 4 live bait rotations once a week. The live bait goes down and then it gets picked up. I like overnight rotations. A lot of our customers like those where it goes down, sometime around sunset and gets picked up, by 8 in the morning or sooner or earlier. Sunrise is going to be somewhere between 5 and 5:45. You'll get some good feedings right in that window, and then you remove that active bait, replace it with pre-bait. So the entire treatment period from a proposed standpoint is an 8-week treatment period for the clean out. I've seen infestations gone in as little as 5 days or less, which I've talked about in other episodes. So it might be that you come in with a pre-bait rotation and you come back in the very next one and that pre-bait is cleaned out. Boom, I come in live after one live bait rotation, all the birds leave and the problem's solved. That's awesome. That's great. But we like to under promise and over deliver. And so we recommend proposing these at about 8 weeks for treatment. So you've got your pre-bait 1 or 2 trips a week for up to 4 weeks. And then you've got your live bait 1 rotation per week for up to 4 weeks. That's your clean out. From there, you move into your monitoring program. This is where I'm going to reduce the number of trays that I've got out there by about 75%, right? So I'm going to pull this down to like 5 trays, down from 20 or so, somewhere in there. And I'm just going to cluster them during my monitoring program or protection program into key spots, right? So I might need 3 trays spread out across this dock area, and I might need 2 trays right in over here. And then from there, I'm just checking those trays once every 30 days for signs of activity. These bird infestations start small and they grow with time. So I'm actually going to go ahead and deploy my pre-bait there. And if I start to see, some feeding activity or customers reporting it to me, I'm going to rotate in with my live bait or whatever. That's all under one price, one plan. And so now we've got a program that actively remember I said you typically get a quarter mile of repelling. This is a big site. But it would cover all of that, and it's great. Covers parking lots, does all that. It's pretty awesome how this works. I kind of describe it a bit like a shotgun rather than a sniper rifle. The reason why a lot of the shuffling bird methods don't really require you to hit a dead is they actually allow you to kind of spread that impact out. Right, and so as long as I can get birds of feed, that's all I need, and I'm getting a quarter mile of repelling. So from there, now with my monitoring program, I'm just making sure now that small amounts of birds never turn into an infestation again, and now the whole thing is taken care of. Now I will say I have seen guys pair this, come in with a baiting treatment, get a big infestation to leave, then from there install some deterrents in key areas or whatever, and then also set up a monitoring program. So that way, if 1 or 2 birds show up, there's no place for them to show up where they could cause real issues. And then the monitoring program helps make sure that doesn't grow into a big problem for wherever else it is that they do settle on, right? So I have seen that be effective too. There's a few different ways that you can do it, but that's really how you can see how simple it is to treat something like this. Now, our team gets into like full plans on exactly how much bait goes into each tray and when. Our team gets into full plans on exactly where to place your trays, how many trays you need, exactly what kind of pre-bait you need, exactly what the live bait looks like, what your timing looks like. We kind of look at it a little bit like we're co-pilots with you. We'll come alongside you, help you navigate this thing and get it right. So I'm giving a lot of information, but we have a whole team behind this that can help you with it too. The other thing is we have a certification program. There's probably a link that's popped up on the screen or a link down in the description or a combination of both. We've got thousands of EMPs that have signed up for that. It is comprehensive. It helps you understand how to identify birds in the first place, how to do these treatments no matter the type of treatment, how to sell more of these jobs, what the regulations are, all of your questions answered comprehensively in a masterclass. We call it the Avitrol Certification Program Masterclass. So if that's interesting to you, sign up for that. Highly recommend it. Help you navigate these types of things. But that's really all I want to bring this episode is help point out some of the dangers in some of these types of facilities, why you don't want to shuffle these birds around, and then how to do these treatments in a way where you're not shuffling them. So until next time, tune in. We've got another episode coming for you. By the way, too, if you're not paying attention to the shorts, pay attention to the shorts. We've got regular great stuff that comes out there. Shout out to Justin. He's actually crushing it, getting that stuff out there and to you guys. And then we are on like all the different social media platforms and channels. If you haven't checked out our TikTok channel, check that out. That's actually got a lot of traction right now too. And then the other thing I'll say is make sure that you subscribe. If you liked what you saw, you don't want to miss an episode because they get better and better as we go through this. Feel free to, if there is something that you'd like to hear from us, a topic that you'd like to hear us talk about, feel free to comment, feel free to DM us or something like that, because we want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. So stay tuned for the next time. Great hanging with you this time.